I'm calling to order the meeting of the City of Salem Budget Committee for May 6th, 2026. Can the recorder please call the roll?
Member Geyer.
Here.
Member Belicheks.
Here.
Member Murray.
Here.
Here. Who? Oh, Murray, Barney, hi.
Sorry. Almost. Okay, Member Murray is here. Member Nishioka.
Here.
Member Dixon.
Here.
Member Brown.
Present.
Member Manville.
Here.
Member Varney.
Here.
Okay. Member Cohen.
Here.
Member Nordyke.
Here.
Member Allen.
Here.
Member Vang.
Here.
Member Matthews.
Here.
Member Fuller.
Here.
Member Julie Hoy. Absent. Member Gwen.
Here.
Vice Chair Vieira Brandel.
Present.
Chair Tigan.
Here. Okay, would you please rise as you're able and join me in the Pledge of the Allegiance? Okay, thank you everyone for this, our fourth meeting of the budget season. We have additions to the agenda this evening, including errata sheets, a staff report, and public testimony. Could I have a motion to approve the additions to the agenda?
Motion to approve the additions to the agenda.
Second. We have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. We'll call that motion passing. We're going to go to public testimony. We're going to begin our meeting this evening with public comment. We have one person who signed up for public comment. For those who have signed up, please provide your name and your neighborhood or ward. We will give you 3 minutes to testify before the committee. A timer will be displayed on the screen behind me. When your time expires, please conclude your testimony. No applause or crowd participation is necessary. So we'll start with Rachel Atchison. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Rachel Atchison, Ward 3. Chair Tigan and Citizen Budget Committee, I want to thank you for volunteering your time to work on this committee. I know the budget book is thick, and for those of you who don't sit on council, the glory is thin. I just had some thoughts about the increased police funding proposed. I see the testimony submitted by the wealthy downtown business community in support of adding 4 more officers for their perception of safety. I'm not surprised. They don't want the unhoused to be visible, which might decrease their profits. But is crime really up? It's my understanding that is not the case downtown. I think a lot of what folks are calling crime is having to watch poor people do in public what the rest of us do in the privacy of the homes that we are lucky to have. People don't want to see others picking their nose, cleaning their feet, or toileting. I get that. But is this really crime? Are more cops really the right answer? We would all be much better served by something like an ambassador program. I have a close family member who is disabled by schizophrenia, and for 10 years he was homeless because he was untreated. In all those miserable years of trying to find him an entry point into the healthcare system that he needed to access, he was never helped by law enforcement. He was given multiple tickets for jaywalking that he couldn't pay and that led to a warrant for unpaid fines. He had guns drawn on him for not following commands properly when his condition was preventing him from thinking straight. On a different day, he may have been killed by the police, as we have seen many times in encounters between the mentally ill and armed officers. Anyway, I'm not here to give you my family's sob story, but to ask you to consider if these police positions are really in the best interests of our entire community. There are many people like myself, as well as many poor people and communities of color who do not perceive the police as an automatic safety force. But my main question tonight is for the city manager, who repeatedly lauds that the actions she recommends are data-driven. I would ask if the crime stats back up this action, or are we trying to appease the sanctimonious outrage from the mayor and Chamber of Commerce? I hope you all send forward a budget that reflects the needs of all Salem residents. Thank you again for your work.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else in the crowd this evening that would like to offer public comment on an item? Okay, next order of business is approval of the April 29th, 2026 Budget Committee minutes. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
Thank you. A motion from Member Nordike and a second from Member Gwynn. Is there any discussion about the meeting minutes from our last meeting? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 All those opposed, please signify by saying no. Okay, the motion passes. There are 3 action items this evening that I will ask Mr. Eggleston to walk us through. CFO Eggleston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer. We have 4 errata sheets for you this evening. As a reminder, these are either errors or corrections to the budget. The first one, errata sheet 4, is in the local option levy fund. There's been some discussion about the collection budget as well as the volunteer coordinator. This action reduces the volunteer coordinator to start in October, so 3 months from the year, and we're moving those funds to the collection budget, as well as rebudgeting some funds from the current year estimated savings into the collection budget. And what those 2 items do is they equal the total collection for subscriptions and book budget as the current year, fiscal year 2026. Errata sheet 5 is a program allocation issue. Generally, we don't allocate staff time to debt service or transfer programs. We missed this one, so this corrects those program allocations, moves them to the operating programs. There is a $20 shift in the budget just because of rounding when you move programs around. And then the good governance results area program page, a similar issue where there was a late change to the good governance results area. It's just in the results area, it's not in the rest of the budget. So this corrects that area for the good governance in the cultural tourism fund. Happy to answer any questions about those.
Any questions from the committee for Mr. Eggleston? Yes, Member Manville.
Shocking. Just one. Josh, I'm curious when we're budgeting new positions to start July 1st, but we haven't passed the budget yet, kind of how that impacts the hiring process, and if you've already been trying to hire a volunteer coordinator dependent on budget, or like just how that dance works.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. It depends a little bit on the type of position, because there's some positions where we might carry a hiring list from a previous recruitment. It might happen faster. Generally, it takes a little while, so this actually reflects more what reality might be if the recruitment effort starts July 1st after the budget's approved, and then the actual hiring process. So it's not dissimilar from what would happen regardless. It just recognizes that savings piece.
And Josh, by budgeting that savings piece to the collections without any amendment from the committee, we're getting the full collections fund budgeted this year.
That is correct. We're matching the current budgeted collections for subscriptions and books.
Thank you. Any other questions about the errata sheets? Okay, thank you, Josh, for your review. I would like a motion from the floor to approve staff recommendation for errata sheets 4, 5, and 6.
So moved.
Oh, I have I'll say a motion from Member Fuller and a second from Member Matthews. Any further discussion on the errata sheets? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed can say no. Okay, that motion passes, and the errata sheets are adopted. We're going to move on to the information items. Josh, would you like to walk us through the information items provided this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we do, I'm going to turn it over to the city manager for some brief comments.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Josh. Well, good evening, and thank you for being here. As we begin tonight, I do want to take us back to where we started. Last year, in the middle of budget crisis and organizational uncertainty, this council, the budget committee, and staff have made a conscious decision. And the decision was to approach these challenges differently than how we have done this before. So what we agreed that we could not continue continue to think one budget cycle at a time. So the budget has to be prepared in the context of the 5-year forecast. So what we also committed ourselves to focus on the long-term fiscal responsibility. That also involves how to control costs over a period of time, and also making those disciplined decisions that position Salem for the future. And this strategy was and continues to be the right one for Salem. And each of you brought different perspectives to this process, but what brought us together was a shared understanding that the challenges Salem facing are complex, and that solving them requires the community engagement and also strategies that are thoughtful, comprehensive, and holistic. So it also required our willingness to try new approaches and be innovative in how we are providing services. And that's exactly what fiscal year 27 budget proposal attempts to do. And when I look at the main 3 priorities of this, one is to stabilize our financial position while continue to address challenges, some of the complex challenges that the community is facing, and focusing on safety, quality of life, but also intentional, practical problem solving. So the third element of it is investing in strategic initiatives that we know that are already working, like Safe, Clean, Healthy Salem. So the value of a disciplined and well-thought-out approach like this is it creates the capacity to test new pilot programs at proactive solutions, but also the attempt is, can we use these programs as a way to slow down the future cost escalation? So this is the framework behind every pilot program that is being proposed through this budget. Whether it is Center 50+, library, public safety, it is the same framework that is being applied. What I also want to emphasize tonight, that these ideas did not emerge in isolation from staff or from me alone. The city manager's proposed budget does not reflect the perspectives of a single council member or the priorities of a single council member. It represents the collective direction, values, and priorities of the entire council. So when you see, what you see through the budget proposal is these priorities came from council conversations during several council meetings over the past 12 months, and also the community input. So first, we did collect the community priorities through the surveys. The council identified key community concerns from that, and staff then worked to develop workable solutions, or solutions that are practically can be implemented within the budget constraints that we have. So doing nothing on some of these issues until long-term funding issues are fully resolved, I would really appreciate if There is no side conversation happening. Thank you. Staff, so to develop solutions that could be implemented within the fiscal constraints that we have. So anyway, so the reality is, if we wait any longer, we have fewer choices, higher costs, and we have smaller outcomes. So before the problem becomes unmanageable, it is important that we test new strategies. We need to adjust wherever it is needed. I also understand that if something is not working or it is financially unsustainable, we need to take a different direction. So that is the flexibility we have to maintain as we move forward. I also want to clarify a few items that generated discussion during the process. The first one is we have heard testimony about the proposed reduction to library materials and services. And to address those concerns, we are proposing to delay the start date of the volunteer coordinator position and then use those savings to offset the remaining reduction of $40,000. And so this has been added to tonight's agenda for your consideration. And then the second, I do want to clarify that the funding structure related to the public safety pilot programs, as I outlined during my April 15th budget presentation, the downtown community policing officers are funded through the paid on-street parking revenue. The homeless service team officers will now be funded through opioid settlement funds rather than the general funds fund as originally planned. So that adjustment allowed us the city to redirect general fund money to support the proposed drug enforcement officers. So part of the reason to kind of do that is also not to create more deficit in the general fund. And so finally, what I want to is to return to that broader framework of reactive and proactive services. And I heard over the past few weeks about what the value is when we are kind of approaching some of these issues with the proactive services. So what I want to kind of highlight, first of all, the strategy that is being applied on these pilot programs is consistently, we are applying that across the organization. Some of that, you see that through the budget process, but how on the operational side of it, that is the focus has been over the past 12 months. How can we be managing our operations and services proactively over reactive services? So proactive investments, and I'm assuming that we have some kind of a consensus on this, is proactive investments do not always immediately reduce existing costs. You do that to see that impact over a period of time. But what I can see is that long-term value is in reducing the severity, frequency, and demand for more intensive responses over time. So it also helps to reduce the pressure on emergency systems. REACH program is a classic example of how we are trying to reduce the number of calls that we get to fire and to 911. So it also improves the community community outcomes through these long-term investments. The other piece is an important piece as we move forward. In this economic conditions, it is not fair to go back to ask the community to keep paying more and more. When we are asking the community to support with our programs, we have to be able to manage our programs in a way that are reasonable, and we know exactly what you're asking the community for support and help. So it is important that we continue to create some opportunities or potential to slow down the cost escalations. So you have to slow future staffing and operational cost growth as Salem continues to grow. I'm not saying we're not going to increase the cost of operations, but we need to slow down the cost escalation. That is a strategy, something that we have to continue to work on it. So as we conclude this budget process tonight, I do want to thank the Budget Committee, the Council, the staff, and the community for the thoughtful engagement over the past several weeks. So this budget by no means is about solving every challenge Salem is facing, but it is about continuing to moving this community, this organization forward with some level of discipline on the financial, fiscal responsibility, innovation, and a commitment to responsible stewardship of public resources. So I do believe that over the past year, we have made some meaningful progress in some areas, and I wouldn't say all of them, but in some areas we did. We are building a stronger foundation for the future of this community, and I thank you again for your time, partnership, and commitment in serving Salem. So thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Namburi. Maybe I'll leave it to the floor to see if there's any questions. Member Dixon.
I just have a comment to follow up on the city manager's discussion of proactive services. I'm strongly supportive of that approach. I had heard initially that the hope was to start seeing some benefits flow through to the organization within 5 years. And then in response to a question that I asked between meetings, I learned that the timeline is more like 7 to 10 plus years, and I just want to say I hope that the staff and council can figure out a way to accelerate that timeline, because there's sort of a 5-year cliff for the budget, and I think to the extent that the proactive services can start showing some benefits for the bottom line within that 5-year period, it would be terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Dixon. I'll just note for the floor, Member Brown, when you twirl your pen like that, you don't realize looks like you're twirling about a 5-foot baton behind us. So, right. Any other questions on this, or we'll move into the information reports and I'm sure a more robust discussion this evening. Yes. Member Varney.
Were you asking about questions on the agenda materials?
Just on what we've heard from City Manager Namburi. I just would give the floor the chance to ask a question. That's all. Okay. CFO Eggleston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few information items for you this evening. Again, the summary of Budget Committee actions, responses to Budget Committee questions, the quarterly reports for the city and the Urban Renewal Agency for Q3. Those are on your agenda this evening, and they're going to be on the City Council agenda on Monday, and then some additional responses to Budget Committee questions. So happy to address any of those if you had a chance to review them.
Yes, Member Varney.
Now is the time.
Now is the time to ask questions about the information items, yes.
I had a question about the questions that were answered that are in the regular agenda packet. It's so Budget Committee responses to member questions on page 2 and 3. It's the how much money is budgeted for public safety overtime and how much are we currently spending. My question is about the table on page 3 and what is proposed for fiscal year 2027. I guess my concern is when I look at from 2026, the budget and the actuals, I mean, everybody spent more on overtime than what was budgeted. But my question is, in the proposed budget, why is there so much more for police overtime proportionately, and there's no increase for overtime for the Willamette Valley Call Center? When they had, they were budgeted 600, but they had 977,000 of overtime. So is there some reason that there's going to be, that they don't need to be budgeted more for overtime? That's my question.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So overtime comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes. Some are contractual obligations for bringing someone in on a separate shift. Some of those are built into the budget, you know, where we expect, hey, this is going to happen. You're going to come in or for shift coverage. A lot of the WVCC overtime and the fire overtime is directly related to vacancies. So we don't budget overtime to backfill vacancies because those positions are already budgeted. So what would happen is if we budgeted in line with where the actuals end up, we're going to end up double budgeting by several $1,000,000 for the city because that full position is budgeted, it's vacant, someone else is backfilling with overtime, so the same dollar is being spent. So that's one of the challenges when we get this kind of question is there's a lot of context that is helpful to go around it. What I will tell you is for the personal services budgets for police, fire, EMS, and WVCC, they're not going over their overall personal services budget. So while their overtime line is going higher above where it's budgeted, overall, all the position expenses are not going over their budget. So like for WVCC, they're at $977,000. Most of that is directly related to vacancies they're trying to train and fill for those positions. So if we were to budget overtime for those pieces when they're fully trained and on staff, we would be over budgeted on the overtime side.
So you're saying that there are not the same kinds of vacancies in police or fire, basically, that would be affected the same way?
So WVCC and fire operate very similar with their minimum staffing. Police is a little bit different. I'm sure they'd be happy to speak to it. So you see a larger increase for the police department because we're really trying to right size that budget. If you might remember, some of it was some additional patrols in Northeast Salem. That piece is included here. So the police department budget is right sized. The general fund fire budget is slightly reduced because we actually increased. We added the training officer where we're hoping to decrease some overtime related to training, as well as a staff assistant for EMS. So they're really staffed very differently on the police and fire side.
Thank you.
Other questions from the floor on the information items? Oh, Dr. Brown, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Hey, I just want to ask a question about point of clarity. Is this a good time to ask a question about the opiate funds, or should I wait for that? I'm only asking because Madam City Manager mentioned it in her comments.
Yeah, you can ask a question about the opiate fund, sure.
Okay, so my question is this. Do we have the discretion to use those funds however we see fit? And when I say we, I'm referring to either A, the Budget Committee, or the Council.
I appreciate the question. So the opioid settlement funds are governed by a settlement agreement, so it's pretty restrictive on how we can use those funds. There was actually a question in your additions agenda where we linked to Exhibit E of the settlement agreement for the eligible uses. So it's not wide open. You can't use it for everything. There are a pretty specific list of items you can use it for.
Okay, thank you. I'll look at Exhibit E. So thank you for that, Mr. CFO. Mr. Chair, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Brown. Other questions about the information items? Yes, Member Cohen.
Thanks, Chair. It's not a question, it's more of a statement. This came up last time when Member Nishiyoko talked about it. But the state revenue sharing decreasing is also happening to the state, and it's what we've called a good-bad problem. It's good because it means that we're getting less beer and wine money because people are drinking less. We're getting less tobacco tax money because less people are smoking, less marijuana smoking. So it's a good-bad problem, which just means that when we look at how we have to deal with the issue at hand, we have to get creative with what the resources we have and how to best tailor that for the future. So I didn't get the opportunity last week to say it, so I want to say that it's a good-bad problem that we have.
Thank you, Member Cohen. Okay, I'm going to move us on to our next item on the agenda. We do not have any public hearings tonight, but the next item on the agenda is special orders of business. We're at a point in our Budget Committee process, after 3 weeks of fact-finding, questions, discussion, to make a recommendation to the City Council and the Urban Renewal Agency Board on the City and Urban Renewal Agency's budget, as well as approve the property tax levies. So that brings us to item number 7 on your agenda. So first is the approval of the fiscal year 2027 Urban Renewal Agency ad valorem property taxes as outlined in the agenda and the URA budget document. Does the committee have any questions about this item as it's presented? CFO Eggleston, I would ask for just a little bit of clarification perhaps for the committee and also those following along at home. In the past, we've had up to 7 urban renewal areas that were collecting ad valorem taxes, and this year we're at 4. Can you discuss the change?
Yeah, appreciate the question. So we're not showing all active urban renewal areas here. What we're showing is the areas we're still collecting tax increment. So we've talked previously about McGilchrist, North Gateway, and Mill Creek. So those are still active. They're not closed, but we're not collecting tax increments. So they've reached maximum indebtedness. We expect to fully be able to de jure those funds this next year. So that's why you only see the 4 that are looking at tax collections. The City Council does have an upcoming work session to discuss a new urban renewal area. But I think one thing that's important to note is those 3 areas have stopped collections. They've returned to taxing jurisdictions, not just the city general fund, but school district, education service districts, all the other ones that collect property taxes. So it's good news. It's a success story about returning that tax increment back to jurisdictions.
Can I follow up? Yes, I can. Thank you. Yeah. Do you have a number? How much tax increment is coming back to the city instead of being held in an urban renewal agency fund?
Appreciate the question. I don't have it offhand, and I really should. I think it's in the range of about $5 million. If you look at the general fund revenue summary, you'll see an increase of about 9% in current year property taxes. It's the most I've ever seen in my tenure with the city. But it's just that one-time reset of those 2 areas, Mill Creek and North Gateway, returning to the tax rolls. Then we should return next year to that 4.1, 4.2% increase.
Thanks, Josh. Member Varney.
Thank you. I had a URA question, obviously. Let's say there's an area that still has a lot of potential projects. What is the process to get an extension? Isn't it kind of like just adding on another URA? You go through the whole process? I'm just thinking about an expansion. I was just curious.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to the Urban or Community Planning and Development Director.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Rutherford, Director of Community Planning and Development. Before I answer your question, I'd like to get a few more specifics because that answer can be a little bit nuanced. So are you talking about a situation where the issues are within the geographic boundary or adjacent and outside of the geographic boundary, or where we have reached maximum indebtedness and need more funding to do projects?
The last one. So I'm thinking of West Salem, for example, and the fact that, it's almost to maximum, but there's still a lot of projects and a lot of things going on. And I was just wondering what the process was. Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. So this would require what's called a substantial amendment to the maximum indebtedness. And that's a pretty complex and lengthy process. It's somewhat similar to creating a new urban renewal area. It requires working with the overlapping taxing districts, a lot of the same process that we go through in terms of public hearings, and it's about a 9-month process. It requires, notifying the citizens, similar to creating a new urban renewal area. Okay.
I was just curious.
Okay, other questions specific to the URA ad valorem tax?
Dr. Brown.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Brown. Member Brown, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. It's in regards to the URA. Can I ask a question about it, or is it too late?
The URA is the topic on the floor for discussion, so this is a good time to ask.
Okay, so Director Rutherford mentioned, the maximum indebtedness of a particular URA, which I understand, but I'm going to ask a crazy question, which I think I know the answer to. But when one area has reached their maximum indebtedness and things basically cut off, are other URAs allowed to tap into an additional URA fund, or are they strictly held within their boundaries?
Yeah, appreciate the question. You can borrow from one area to another, but I don't think you can use funding from one area strictly in another area.
So it is possible.
You can borrow, but you'd have to pay it back. And it counts toward maximum indebtedness, so it gets pretty complicated when you start borrowing between areas.
Mr. Chair, may I follow up?
Yes, Member Brown, but I would just caution, we're going to try to keep this towards the ad valorem question as much as possible, rather than a policy discussion about the URAs in general.
Okay, let's just move it. Mr. CFO, I'll keep my policy questions. I will send them to you.
Thank you, Member Brown. Okay, other questions on the floor about the ad valorem taxes? Okay, I'd like a motion to approve the Urban Renewal Agency FY 2027 ad valorem property taxes.
So moved.
I've got a motion from Member Nordijk and a second from Member Hoy. Is there any discussion on this matter? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. Okay, the motion passes. We will now hear briefly from Josh regarding the URA budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next area is the strong and diverse economy, the URA portion. So a total budget of just over $72 million, and that's made up of the 4 funds listed on this slide. There are no staff included in the urban renewal area budget, but they do reimburse the city's general fund for staff in the urban development department. And happy to answer any questions.
Member Allen.
Mostly I want to see if Josh will appreciate my question. It has to do with funds 345 and 428, the convention center and the convention center gain loss reserve. With the information that I have here, I'm struggling to understand the interplay between the two and what would be charged against one versus charged against the other.
I do appreciate the question. So the Salem Convention Center, I would call that the operating fund. So that's where the expenses and the revenue actually land for the convention center operations. If they have an operating profit for the year, it gets transferred to the gain loss reserve. And as you might imagine, the loss portion, if there were a loss in the convention center, technically we could go the other direction where we're reimbursing the convention center fund. I don't think we've actually done that. We've deferred a payment, deferred a transfer, but we haven't actually paid money back. The difference is, so the convention center fund is strictly operations. Gain loss reserve has small capital projects. So this is the first year we really saw a lot of those in the capital improvement plan. So when they do a kitchen renovation, or I think one project was even a rekeying of the whole property, when they see those kind of smaller level capital improvements, renovations around the convention center, that's what can go into the convention center gain loss reserve if it's above the target $4 million.
Yes, Member Allen.
So what's the and I'm in the documents that were on our tables this evening. What's the $2 million in revenue for the gain loss reserve if it's tied to whether or not the operating budget gains or loses? Where's that $2 million coming from?
Yeah, so it's simply a plug to allow the city, the urban renewal agency, enough budget authority to transfer back and forth between the funds. So in the past, if they've generated more revenue, we've had to do supplemental budgets. So we allow enough funding that if they have a really good year, we're able to transfer that without any additional budget action.
Other questions, Member Dixon?
This is a comment. I'm going to be voting no on this item.
Member Dixon, let's get a motion on the floor and then we can hear about your opinion on it. Okay, well, how about we hear a motion to approve the recommended Salem Urban Renewal Agency FY 2027 budget to the City Council?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Member Manville and a second from Member Vang. Now to the discussion in Member Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to note that I will be voting no on this, and it involves concerns that I have about the lack of information about the impact of economic development programs in general on the wages and welfare of workers. And so I'll outline that later when we come to the strong and diverse economy section, but I am voting no on this one.
Thank you, Member Dixon. Other comments or discussion on the Urban Renewal Agency budget? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. We have no votes from Member Manville and Member Dixon. The motion passes. Okay, the next item is approving the City of Salem's ad valorem property taxes. Josh, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So while it's one motion, there are three different levies we're asking for approval this evening. The first is the city's permanent tax rate, $5.83.15 for general fund operations. The second is the 98 cents for the local option levy fund. And the third is the general obligation bond debt levy of $21.4 million. Happy to address any questions.
Seeing no questions, may I have a motion for approval of the City of Salem fiscal year 2027 ad valorem property taxes?
So move.
Motion from Member Allen, a second from Member Hoy.
Oh, you already got it.
Any discussion on this motion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. The motion passes. Okay, members, next is the approval of the recommended city budget to City Council. This action occurs by result area, as that is how the budget is presented, has been presented to us. Please time motions to modify the budget to occur when discussion of the result area your motion would impact, should you have any motions. Josh will outline what services each area includes, as well as the total proposed budget. The budget includes the changes from the errata approved tonight, as we discussed, as well as at previous meetings by the Budget Committee. Our first result area this evening is good governance. Mr. Eggleston, please walk us through this result area.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Total for this results area is $167.5 million, 279.15 full-time equivalent positions. It includes the City Manager's Office, Enterprise Services, the Equipment Replacement Reserve, Finance, Legal, Mayor and Council, the Pension Obligation Bond Debt Service, and then Shared Governance Services across the city. Happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Member Manville.
Yeah, I'm sorry if this is not the right time, but it was kind of all under Agenda 7D. So the second to last page in our packet, Table 1, just talks about the downtown parking expenses. And I was wondering if those expenditures are inclusive, like include the money that is refunded back to the downtown businesses in that line item.
For the fiscal year 2027 budget?
Yeah, I'm probably mistaken, but yeah.
No, I think you're on the right track. So all the refunds of the downtown parking district tax are occurring in fiscal year 2026. So those are just getting credit against revenue. We're not going to see an expense for those items since they were paid this year. So we could continue to see some revenue, some expense related to past due previous years that haven't been paid. But as far as the council action earlier this fiscal year to refund those are all occurring in the current fiscal year, so they're not included in next year's budget.
Any other questions on the good governance result area? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the recommended City of Salem fiscal year 2027 good governance result area budget?
So moved.
I have a motion from Member Hoy.
I'll second it.
A second from Member Nishioka. Any discussion on this motion? Yes, Member Dixon. Please hit your mic. There you go.
And I am going to be voting yes on this, but it's a close call for me because of my concern, again, about the risk of the city running out of money in 2031. I am encouraged that the City Council is going to be looking at a long-term strategy to address the revenue imbalance or the structural imbalance in the general fund. And I believe that working on the revenue side makes sense because I don't see how the city can make significant cuts that will not really affect core services. And that's not just my opinion. That was also the conclusion of a city efficiency committee in 2025 that was supported by the City Council and made up primarily of local business representatives. And I see the willingness of city leadership to come to grips with the revenue question as important, and it's enough to overcome my concern about the general fund. So that's why I'm voting yes, even though I have some reservations. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment, Member Dixon, and apropos for good governance, I would say. Thank you. If there's no other discussion on the good governance section of this evening's budget, actually, I'll just say all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying no. Okay, that motion passes. The next area this evening is natural environment stewardship. CFO Eggleston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Natural environment stewardship, a total for the result area just under $51 million, 157.17 full-time equivalent positions. It includes the climate action plan activities, environmental education, environmental monitoring, compliance, as well as stormwater and wastewater services. And we're happy to address any questions.
If there's no questions for the staff, may I have a motion to recommend the City of Salem fiscal year 2027 natural environment stewardship result area budget? A motion from Member Belachiks.
Second.
Second from Member Varney. Is there any discussion on this motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. The motion passes. Okay, our third area this evening will be safe and healthy community. I invite Josh to speak about this area. Josh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. $225.8 million, 562 full-time equivalent positions, includes emergency medical or ambulance transport services, fire and emergency response, municipal court, police emergency response and law enforcement, radio communications, and the Willamette Valley Communications Center, or 911 call center. We're happy to address any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Eggleston. I'll note the $20 correction in the budget, which I'm afraid to know how much we spent to correct the $20 error. But any discussion or questions for Mr. Eggleston? Yes, Member Manville?
I'd like to make a motion, but perhaps we can take questions before I make a motion.
Thank you, Member Manville. Member Allen?
Josh, I apologize if this was covered at the meeting that I might have missed. My question is regarding the EMS Services Fund. Is that operating self-sufficiently, as I believe was the anticipation?
Yes, that is correct. There's still a couple unknowns. We haven't finished out the full year, but we are operating in the positive solvent for cash as well as on an accrual basis.
Other questions before we get to our motions practice? Member Manville.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the Budget Committee recommend the City Council request staff seek a second council approval to happen no earlier than September 15th, 2026 on the expenditures for the 4 additional police positions covered by the Prevent, Treat, and Enforce and Downtown Community Policing pilot programs.
Second.
A motion on the floor from Member Manville and a second from Member Dixon. Member Manville, to your motion.
Thank you. This budget is a lot of work, and I really appreciate it, but I don't think it takes our structural deficit as seriously as I believe we should take it. Some people have been spending $150,000 telling Salem voters the budget is stable and back on track, and I think we all know that's not yet true, and we want it to be true. We'll be over $34 million in the red by 2031 by projections for the general fund, and other funds have dire forecasts from TOT to transportation. And that forecast is more optimistic than it might be if not for the forecast review team. We might be even deeper in the red. So this is a serious hole that we're facing. And I don't want to, again, discount the really hard work from staff to hold back costs, to find $150,000 per department in savings, to chip in on your health insurance, and to really do a lot of hard work over the last several years. We could be in much worse shape than we are. So thank you for that work. And I know a lot of this is out of your hands. Huge increases in healthcare, thanks to America's healthcare system, et cetera. But still, in this general fund proposed budget, costs go up 6.4% and revenues go up 4.6%. And talking about cost escalation, the police department costs go up by 7.7%, or $5.3 million out of the 11.9 increase in general fund. The library goes up 3.2%, so less than everything else, less than the general revenues, or $200,000. So our police chief noted last week that it's not his job to balance the budget, and that's very true, Chief Womack, but it is our job here. And looking at it, the 6 new police positions to support new expanded programs, these sound like good ideas. And I think that we could redirect some of the existing positions to do some of this work. Because violent crime is significantly down, it's down at 20%, the first quarter of 2026, it's dropping even further. That means we have 25% more police officers per violent crime than we had a year ago. So this motion is not meant to stop these proposed pilot programs. I like them. I think they're thoughtful. It's asking City Council to gather more information before signing the check, because I'm not also suggesting that we're going to take it out of the budget. In a few months, the City Council could know more about a possible downtown ambassador program. It might know more about a new URA that might reduce our available funds. It will know more about your options on revenue. And it will know what the incoming council composition will be, unless Councilor Gwynn holds us in suspense again until November. But without that information, I think it's simply premature to authorize about $800,000 on a couple of new pilot programs. As Chief Womack noted, one of these pilot programs depends on creating long-term relationships, but there's no plan, there's no funding to ensure these are long-term programs. The money that go into these programs come from, as the city manager clarified, the general fund and the downtown parking fund. And the council can do whatever it wants with the downtown parking fund. You can change the code that restricts it. And most parking benefit districts around the country that I'm aware of fund a significant amount of their general fund. They don't serve it all to the district. So that's an option. So my main concern, and I mentioned this last week, is I think that funding these positions today means we're cutting police in the future. And that's the trade-off. And it will lead to costly and problematic fluctuations that Chief Womack discussed last week. And it also means we're likely to cut more from other departments in the future. Again, I'm not saying we shouldn't create these programs. I really appreciate the city manager Namburi's and the staff's intent to take proactive steps. I think that's a right approach. My preference would be to reallocate existing staff towards these programs. But what this motion says is we shouldn't expand our expenses beyond our means to do so, at least not until we have a few more months of information to the council. And this is just kind of my approach as a parent. I often have to tell my kids, no, you got to do your homework and you practice your violin before you get on your screens. That's kind of the same approach. Let's do our homework before we spend money we do not have, because we're facing that $34 million in the red problem. So let's not spend it until we know more, however tempting that might be. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Manville. I'll ask you, can you read your motion one more time, and then we'll open up to the floor for discussion.
Yes, and I apologize, and I apologize to Josh had offered to send this out to folks, and I said, I don't know if I'm going to make it, so don't muddy the waters, and I apologize. So I apologize. Here it is. I move that the Budget Committee recommend that the City Council request staff seek a second council approval to happen no earlier than September 15th, 2026, on the expenditures for the 4 additional police positions covered by the Prevent, Treat, and Enforce and Downtown Community Policing pilot programs. Was that slow enough? I can read it again, or if there are parts.
Further discussion or questions of the maker of the motion? Member Varney.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. My question is, how are you envisioning the council would have additional information as soon as September?
Thank you for the question. I think I can answer it, Chair. So I'm saying no earlier than September. It's possible you'll want to gather more information for longer than that, but the things that I mentioned, we will know. We will know the makeup of the future council. We will have, the council will have discussed, heard some about potential revenue opportunities. You could, but probably won't know much more about the Downtown Ambassador Program that kind of overlaps with some of the purposes in these. And you will have had a discussion about the new URA. So those are, I think, 4 impactful decisions that you will have some more, if not fully complete information on, and might be helpful for understanding how much you might be able to afford these programs, or whether you'd rather rejigger staff.
Yes, Councilor Brown. Member Brown, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just want to follow up on Member Varney's question because mine is similar. And so thank you for the motion, Member Manville. I do see the concern that you have, and I would say, yes, I totally agree. I come from the perspective of being, fiscally conservative, and so I get that 100%. So my question is to you, Mr. Chair, is this a decision that we would, as a committee, do we basically hold this decision in limbo until the council meets and then we vote on it there? Like, how does this work?
Thank you, Member Brown. Josh, it sounds like looks like you might have an answer.
I can attempt, and then we have backup if needed. So this is just a recommendation to City Council. City Council can decide if they want to consider or not. There isn't a way for the Budget Committee to bind the City Council. When you recommend a budget, there's no stipulations on timing or anything like that. It's either in or out. So this would be a separate recommendation to City Council.
Thank you, Mr. CFO. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Member Allen.
I just wanted to thank Member Manville for the motion and thank him for his concern. I echo his concerns. I probably won't be supporting the motion. I think City Council heard the concerns, and I very appreciate you raising them.
Member Gwynn.
Well, the question's not for you. The question's really for the city manager. Pilot programs started when? I just don't remember. Pilot programs are for how long? And when do you intend to come back to us with progress reports? That would help me in.
Thank you, Member Gwen, for the question. So the pilot programs, this both prevent, treat, enforce, and the community policing using downtown paid parking, they both are for 12 months. And because of the recruitment, we won't be able to start the program until January 1st. It takes us 6 months to go out and do the recruitment. So both programs are designed to start January 1st of 2027, and they'll continue for the next fiscal year until December 2027. What I do want to highlight is when we brought Safe, Clean, Healthy Salem as a pilot program to the council and to the community, I have been consistent and very clear that the only way that program is going to work if we go in that together, like it's a safe, clean, healthy Salem. There is a strategy and applying multiple things to this complex issue. A single solution to a single problem is always expensive, so you want to take like that comprehensive and holistic approach to it. So coming back to this year pilot programs, so just to kind of take a step back, with the Safe, Clean, Healthy Salem, we also talked about there are missing pieces there. One is the community policing. The second piece of it is the prevent, treat, and enforce. And the third component, I think, ambassador program is another one, and then the public restrooms. And we had conversations about the ambassador program, I think, a few weeks ago, and the ambassador program always works better in addition to some of these other programs that we are trying to. And in my humble opinion, and I know Chief Umak agrees with this, ambassador program is not a program to replace policing. Just, that's not, in our professional opinion, that is not something that we would recommend. And coming back to the prevent, treat, enforce, it is again a package. The reason why we proposed it the way we did, and we are also investing some resources into the preventive effort, is you want to approach this complex issue from multiple angles at the same time. That is how Safe, Clean, Healthy Salem worked and was effective. The REACH program by itself was not going to solve the issue that we were handling. We wanted to see some measurable outcomes. And so that was one of the reasons why we approached it collectively as a package. And my recommendation to the council at that time is either we go as a package or we don't do anything. I recommend the same thing for prevent, treat, enforce. And I kind of recommend the same thing, that we need to be looking into that bigger picture rather than the individual programs or individual positions.
Thank you, City Manager. Member Cohen.
Thank you, Chair. There was a great article today from the Salem reporters, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It had an interview with our very own police chief. I'm going to read a few sections from it and make some comments on it. This was in response to the City of Salem doing a pilot project, a community violence reduction initiative, which was started 2 years ago. Just recently, Chief Womack partnered with some of the folks in our city to talk to the most high-risk individuals, the ones that are actually shooting each other, right, that we want to reduce in this lovely city. So Chief Womack, quoting, "To these young men at the highest risk, what we're saying to them is, we care about you. We don't want you shot, killed, or injured. We don't want you in prison or locked up." And to the person who was the director of the area, he said that the folks there were very surprised to see the success of the individuals there. They asked the chief for recommendations on their resume. They want to know how to engage in their life, how to move forward. And this was all started through a pilot project. So when I look at what the city manager said, both at the beginning of this process and then again tonight, with the safe, clean, healthy, with the prevent, treat, and enforce pilot projects, I'm seeing results. In the article, it quoted our Salem reporter that in 2025, 170 fewer people were victims of aggravated assault than the previous year. That's success, folks. That is success. I don't want us to go backwards by not doing these pilot projects when they're so evidently and clearly being successful. So I'm going to be a no vote on this because I think that our police are doing an excellent job in addressing the issues that the community came forward and said that, hey, we need this in our city. And it's this police chief and the city manager who responded and said, yes, we join you. And it's not just a police thing, as the city manager said. It is our faith communities working with the police, working with community ambassadors, working with nonprofits. It takes a village to run this city, and I see lots of great action happening. So I will be a no vote on this, a yes on having the pilot going forward.
Thank you, Member Cohen. Member Matthews.
I agree, Member Cohen. I think those are successes, but I think the part that's not a success is we talked about this back in August, and as of August of last year, we had over 1,000 overdoses in Salem alone. I don't know where that ended for 2025, but I'm sure it wasn't less. Mathematically couldn't be. It'd be impossible. And so that's not success, and we are failing in that specific area. And the prevent, treat, enforce model is built around trying to take a holistic approach at trying to do all three of these avenues to try to make the entire package, or try to make the entire number reduce. These overdoses are killing people. You know the people that are overdosing, either you do or you don't, but the reality is that it's not just the people in the homeless camps or the people that are transient. It is your neighbors, it is your friends, it is this drug epidemic is affecting everyone. And so to say that we're not going to invest these dollars now and try to wait until September to have a conversation around trying to invest those dollars, it seems very short-sighted to me, because we have people that are actually overdosing on a daily basis, not between now and September we won't have any overdoses. We're going to have a ridiculous amount. We spent a lot of time on the library collections budget, on reducing not the overall budget that's being utilized, the overage of that budget that hadn't been utilized in the past, to fund a volunteer coordinator position in a department that ultimately, compared to the other departments that have volunteer coordinators, has far less volunteer hours. And we got that back in a question, a substantial less. And tonight, our solution was, let's just delay that position too. Fine, if that's what we think is best, to delay that position and keep the volunteer hours lower, the staff need help in that area. And getting some volunteer hours helped release some of the pressure on the staff. Frankly, for me, that was more important than the collections budget, but for this body, if it feels different, then I'm okay with that too. But for this particular area, this prevent, treat, enforce, to say that we're going to delay the actual action item, I think that's short-sighted in my mind. So I'll be voting no.
Member Dixon and then Member Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the topic of the timeline on this is important, and two things. I'm wondering why we're going from a January 1 to December 31st timeline for this, for all of these pilot projects. And I would hope for the future, when we're looking at proactive services, they can start in concert with the beginning of the budget year, so we have the evaluation follow the budget cycle. So two questions. Why are these starting in December? And then secondly, is it possible to go more on a budget cycle calendar for them?
Thank you for that question, Member Dixon. I think it really comes down to recruitment. Like once the budget is approved, we have to go out and recruit for those positions. So Chief Womack, do you want to kind of add to that?
Budget Committee, Trevor Womack, your Chief of Police. I wasn't sure if I'd be up here again tonight, but here I am, so thank you. I do appreciate the question, actually. It's a little bit complicated. So we talked last week about the staffing needs that we have at the department and how we have a minimum staffing we need on patrol of 80. And I also said that last year was the first year in 5 years that I and we have been able to reach 80 on patrol. It's something we've been working for to fill vacancies. So we're hovering around that 80 number right now. There's no way if you approved it tomorrow and gave me the money, I could pull an officer off of patrol and put them into the special assignment. So I need to make sure I'm always at 80 on patrol. So we need to hire, we need to get through some more people through training. This 6-month period here allows us to make sure we can float a few more officers on patrol so we can take the 2 or the 4 off for these new specialized assignments. We cannot draw down, which is why we're adding positions. We have to add capacity to the department so we can maintain 80 on patrol while we want to try to do these additional supportive services or proactive services. So it's really just about that. I don't want to speak for the city manager, but I think it was also about just trying to cushion the amount of the budget impact immediately as well. So it's half of a fiscal year instead of starting right away in July 1. But it's mostly about the ability to fill the positions. It gives us room to make that happen.
Thank you, Chief Womack. Member Nordick, let's try to keep it to as much as we can on the motion on the floor, which is about making a recommendation back to the council to consider these positions again on the 15th.
Right. Thank you so much, Chief. I just wanted to make sure I understood. If this committee approves these new positions, you are going to be doing external recruitments. Is that right? You're going to have to be recruiting new people to come to the Salem Police Department.
We are continually recruiting. Trying to keep our head above water. We have an attrition rate we're trying to stay ahead of. I've said before we've had record level hiring actually, so we've hired 20 new officers a year for 4 years now. That's 80 officers, and I mean, so there's a lot of new blood coming into the organization, but there's still a lot of exit happening, and so we're just slowly gaining ground with our vacancies. We finally got from 26 vacancies to 10, which gave us a little more breathing room. All those officers, once you hire them, it takes a year to train them to get them to be functional officers in the street. So even their hire date doesn't mean anything operational yet. So there's just a delayed effect to all of this. But the milestone that we reached last year is we finally got to the baseline patrol number to where I could start filling these type of positions. Another example of that would be existing traffic officer positions. We had several vacancies there that we carried for about 2 years, because we had to make sure we staffed patrol first. So as we got to a number on patrol, I was able to finally fill out my traffic team, and we cut fatal accidents in half because they got their proactive work going again. So now if we're talking about adding any sort of specialized team like that, a proactive team, a downtown bike team, a team dedicated to narcotics enforcement, those are outside of the basic patrol function. We have to make sure we stay at the baseline patrol function. So it's just giving us time to make sure we get enough officers hired through training to stay at 80 before we pull anybody off. I hope that makes sense to everybody. We're maintaining a baseline number on patrol.
And Chief, you cannot recruit for a position until the city has approved the budget for a position. Is that correct?
On a budget book, you're going to look at those positions and say we can't recruit for those right now. Right now, we have about 10 vacancies. We're recruiting constantly to fill positions. And so because you approve these tonight doesn't mean we're going to do some extra recruitment. We are constantly hiring and recruiting for the police department. And we usually do 4 or 5 recruitments a year, and we work our way through all those applicants to hire as many as we can. And so again, we try to reach that mark of 20 hires a year. Once our attrition rate slows down even more, we'll be able to back off on some of that recruitment. We're going to have a different situation in the future, but right now we're just on a continual hiring cycle.
Thank you. Member Hoy?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to point out we've come a long way in the last year. Chief, I don't think I need your help. Thank you so much, sir. And we were supposed to be in a really bad spot in 2026. And we're not there because of a lot of hard work by the current makeup of this council and the current city manager and the current staff that we have here at the city. So I feel strongly that, and I have faith in the current makeup of council to be able to make good decisions. If something's not working, we will address that. And just because we set a date doesn't mean we're not observing the situation as it's progressing. So I have faith in the current council, and I know that the picture looks dark in 2031, but when I think about the progress that this makeup of council has made in the last year, I can only imagine how much better we'll be doing. And I don't want to leave out the voters. Without the passage of the levy, we would not be sitting where we are. So I feel positively about it and trust this council.
Thank you, Member Hoy. I'll say, Member Manville, always appreciate your contributions and motions. I'm not going to support this motion this evening. I do feel like we have made a commitment to the residents as we've rolled out these pilot projects, that it's also incumbent on us to make sure that we're marking their effectiveness, and if they're not effective, that we would make decisions to change the way that we're going about them. And the way that it's set up, as Chief Womack said, it feels like the Budget Committee is going to get another bite of the apple next year in order to see how effective they've been in the first 6 months or even fewer months of operation. But as always, thank you for your thoughts and contributions. Member Nishioka.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your comments, and Member Manville for bringing that motion forward to, again, make us all realize that we, we're maybe still heading for a cliff, and we have to be very mindful of that. I also appreciate public testimony and your idea that the ambassador program that I brought forward might fill some of the gaps, and how do we weave all of this in. And I think that what we need to do is give the staff time to review some of the concepts that I was bringing forward to see with this ambassador program, because it would fill a gap. That's what it's proven to be doing in other cities that either have community police, or the ambassador program is actually almost a blend of community police and clean team. So it can vary in each city. And I just appreciate the staff. I appreciate the council voting yes for that, so that we could have the staff review how it could work in Salem. And that could potentially change some of the costs later on for us. But I think we need time to see how these pilot programs are going and see where the gaps are and what options we might have to fill them. My hope is that this might be something that isn't just, if it's needed other places within the city, that we could see how it could be applied to other locations, not necessarily downtown. This was a question just recently asked by Member Dixon of me at a neighborhood association meeting. And I just feel that we have a lot to explore. And again, while I appreciate the motion that you made and respect what you're trying to do, I think, again, as others have said, we should probably allow this to go for the original motion to, or the motion that will be made, I guess, to go through, so that we have the opportunity to get the data we need to make decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Nishioka. I'll offer Member Manville the last word before we call a roll.
Sure. Thank you all for the discussion. I think we know where this is headed. I think it's telling that when we identify a shortfall or a need in the library, for example, $40,000 for a collection, we take it from elsewhere in the library budget. We just say, all right, let's squish it in and take something out from the library. Whereas where we identify some, interesting pilot programs for police, we put it on the credit card. And that's what we're doing. When we say there's no impact to the general fund, that's not true. These are real expenses out of the general fund. Yes, we're borrowing more money from the $2.3 million opiate settlement fund to kind of wash things around and pretend that we're not expending money, but it's real money. And we're really, really, really able to do that for police at a time where we're within 25% of the officers per capita of all the other cities, and our library is off by a factor of 4 in terms of how we fund it in terms of persons per capita. So I think our priorities are messed up. I don't disagree with these pilot programs. I think they're I think they're smart generally. I have some quibbles, but I'm not saying don't do the pilot programs. I'm saying you should take the same approach, the fiscally responsible approach that we did with the library budget, and squish it into the budget and reprioritize within the existing funds. And with that said, I will demur to the cacophony of, yes, the overwhelming support for my motion.
Thank you, Member Manville. I'm going to have the recorder call the roll.
Member Belicheks.
Nay.
Member Nishioka.
Nay.
Member Brown.
Nay.
Member Manville.
Aye.
Member Cohen.
No.
Member Allen.
No.
Member Matthews.
Nay.
Member Gwen.
Nay.
Member Julie Hoy.
Nay.
Member Fuller has left. Member Vang.
Aye.
Member Nordyke.
Nay.
Member Verney.
Nay.
Member Dixon.
Nay.
Member Murray.
Nay.
Member Geyer.
Nay.
Vice Chair Vieira Brandl.
Aye.
Chair Tigan.
Nay. The motion fails. We'll move on to, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the recommended City of Salem FY 2027 Safe and Healthy Community Result Area Budget.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Member Hoy and a second from Member Matthews. Is there any discussion on this motion, which is the Safe and Healthy Community Result Area Budget? Member Varney.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to mention I'm really excited about the pilot programs and the things we're looking at. However, I also want folks to remember our budget situation would be a lot different if our community had not supported the livability levy, because I believe that's about $15 million a year. And we'd be in much worse shape if we hadn't had everybody's broad support for our libraries and our parks and Center 50 Plus. I'm supportive of the pilot programs. However, to me, it's almost like adding on streaming services, and then the cost is going to keep going up every year. And that concerns me. I appreciated Member Manville's motion. We need to watch what we're doing, because just because we have a nice looking fund right now and we can try things doesn't mean that that's going to be the case, and we need to watch it. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Varney. Other discussion points on this result area? Okay. I will ask all those in favor to please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no.
No.
Does the recorder have the votes?
Would the nays identify themselves, please?
Thank you.
I apologize. Member Vang, Vice Chair Vieira Brandl, Member Manville. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next area is safe, reliable, and efficient infrastructure. Mr. Eggleston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The total for this result area is $147.6 million with 188.6 full-time equivalent positions. It includes utility maintenance and operations, infrastructure project management, streetlight services, transportation services, and debt service for the general obligation bonds. And staff are available for questions.
Okay, any questions from the committee result for the safe, reliable, and efficient infrastructure area? Okay, seeing none, I would like to have a motion to approve the recommended City of Salem fiscal year 2027 safe, reliable, and efficient infrastructure result area.
So moved.
Thank you, Member
Second.
Hoy, and a second from Member Cohen. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. Okay, that motion passes. Our next area is the capital improvements budget, different from the plan. Josh, if you could please walk us through this budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. $146.7 million. This actually spans multiple results areas, if you remember from the capital improvement plan presentation, but we lumped it all together just for convenience. So it does include multiple funds, extra capacity facilities for SDCs, a capital improvement fund with lots of different funding sources, but we're separating it from the results areas just to make it easy. Happy to address any questions.
Do you have a slide to reflect this result area? I'm being challenged to say safe, reliable, and efficient again.
Yeah, it's the second line there.
The total construction funds. Thank you. Other questions? If I could have a motion from the floor to approve the fiscal year 2027 capital improvements budget.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
from Member Hoy.
Second.
A second from Member Dixon. Any discussion on the motion? Member Allen?
Question for Josh. Just trying to understand how you're breaking that out there. So there are 7 areas in our packet. If I add up the 7 areas, does it equal the total budget? Or did we double count with safe, reliable, and efficient with the capital improvements?
Just 1 second. So if you refer to the staff report in your packet, so the City of Salem budget all funds, it's the adoption report, page 2, funds 101 through 400 for the trust funds. So the construction funds are the totals of the capital improvement fund, Fund 255, 260 extra capacity facilities, and 275 for the development district. So it's a combination of those 3 funds. Those numbers do not appear in any of the other results areas.
Good clarifying question. Other discussion from the committee on this motion? Yes, Member Farney.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I'm supportive of this. The transportation fund continues to concern me with the fact that the expenditures increasing at 4% and the revenue staying basically flat. I know it's something that we're going to be having to look at, but that's part of this. Thanks.
Okay, I think we have a motion on the floor and a second. So all those in favor of passing the capital improvements area fiscal year 2027 budget, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed, please signify by saying no. That motion passes. Okay, our 6th area tonight is the strong and diverse economy. CFO Eggleston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is the city portion of the strong and diverse economy as opposed to the urban rural area we looked at earlier. Just under 17 million, 21.35 full-time equivalent positions. It includes airport operations, business retention, city tourism promotion, downtown parking structure operations, leasehold operations, parking enforcement, and the parking equipment replacement reserve. And staff are available for questions.
Questions for the city staff on this result area? Member Dixon, would you like to either ask a question or bring a motion to the floor?
I would like to bring a motion to the floor.
Thank you.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Mr. Chairman. And I believe this falls under the strong and diverse economy, and my motion also addresses the urban renewal area program. I would like to offer the following motion regarding the city's economic development programs. I move to recommend a study of how the city's economic development programs affect the wages of local workers. The study should encompass urban renewal areas, enterprise zones, business recruitment, and any other programs that staff and the City Council identify as central to economic development. Funding for the study could come from the $1.1 million set aside in the 2027 General Fund budget proposal for citywide memberships, services, and subscriptions.
We have a motion on the floor from Member Dixon.
Second.
A second from Member Nordyke. Mr. Dixon, to your motion.
The city has been actively engaged in formal economic development since at least 1975, when the first urban renewal area was formed. However, there is not any current research showing how economic development programs are improving the wages of local workers. What data are available about how much URAs and economic development in general are helping our community members is mixed. More Salem residents live in poverty than the national and state averages. More Salem residents are unemployed than the national rate. Median household income and per capita income are lower in Salem than nationally. More Salem residents have trouble paying their housing costs than almost anywhere in the country. The city has shown that URAs can raise property values, which paradoxically also raises housing costs, while economic development subsidies such as tax breaks can help businesses. But programs such as these should produce improvements for more than just the owners of property and business. I urge approval of this motion as a step toward ensuring that economic development programs improve the worker economy as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Member Dixon. Discussion on this motion. Member Nishioka.
Thank you, Chair. This question would be directed to our city manager. Would this be something, Member Dixon is suggesting that it be used for the 1.1 million set aside by general fund for citywide memberships and services. Would this motion be better served by having Baker Tilly, our consultants, review this, or would it be something that we should use general funds for? I understand that we pay them for their work, but I believe we have a contract, so I'm not sure if that would be part of that contract.
Thank you for that question, Member Nishioka. I think the dollar amount has to come within that money allocated for the Baker Tilly if we choose Baker Tilly to do the analysis. So I just kind of wanted to take a step back and kind of think about the city already partners with and funds SEDCOR. And the SEDCOR is focused on the economic development and workforce development and activities across the region. And Director Rutherford and I already started conversations with SEDCOR, I think it was like a few months ago, about the need to, Member Dixon, I do agree that we need to have high-paid opportunities and workforce development in Salem. So we already started having that conversation about the need to bring in high-paid employment to Salem and create those workforce development opportunities differently than how we have done in the past. So we started those conversations with ZETCOR. So I'm kind of looking at the motion and the information that this study is asking for, and I'm assuming that there is a lot of data already probably exists with ZETCOR around this, especially around the economic development and also the workforce analysis. So instead of moving into a new study, what I would recommend is for staff to engage with ZETCOR first and understand what kind of data, information, and analysis already exists, and what questions can be answered by them and maybe our other partners, and then identify what those gaps are, and then bring that information back to council for further discussion so that we can define the scope. And then we have to going back to your question, Member Nishioka, is then we have to go through the city's normal process, which is to take the list of studies that the council would like to pursue back to the finance committee for prioritization within the dollar amount that has been allocated. So that's kind of the normal process. So my recommendation is just start with ZETCOR first and then go to the next step.
Thank you, City Manager. Other discussion, Member Matthews.
And I think this question is mostly for Member Dixon, and it kind of jumps off what City Manager Nambury said. I'm not clear when I read this on what the final objective is, and so I was trying to boil it down to, like, for myself on exactly what I'd be voting as a request. And so I kind of came up with two different ways of looking at this, and I wasn't sure which one the goal was. So one of them was, is the goal to determine whether or not a thriving business economy equates to higher employee wages? Is that kind of the target of, if we have a healthy business economy, is it actually trickling down to the employee? Or is it about how successful are our current economic development efforts in recruiting companies that pay livable wages? And I wasn't clear, like, which target area we were actually going with. Is it our success level right now, or is it just like an overall general structure of economic development?
Member Dixon.
My focus is on finding information that would document how the city's current efforts are affecting the wages of workers in the area. And if there is a positive impact, if, for example, the city's efforts are bringing in higher paid jobs and they're staying here, and that becomes a part of the local worker improvement, that's what I'm looking for. So what do the data show? And I hope that addresses your question. I'm not nearly as sophisticated about business as you are, but does that
I don't think anybody's ever called me sophisticated, so I do appreciate that. But I think it does. I think it tells me that we're looking at the question of, the motion would be, is our current economic development efforts successful or not in the holistic approach, in bringing in businesses and having it help the overall worker? Does that sound right?
With the focus on worker wages, yes. Thank you.
Member Nordyke.
My question is for City Manager Nambury. So it sounds like you're already starting to work a little bit in this area. Will this motion further that work if this committee was to approve it? I'm trying to understand whether this motion will help or hinder the efforts that you and Director Rutherford have already begun.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Member Nordyke. The conversations that Director Rutherford and I had with ZETCOR was to kind of think about workforce development in Salem a little differently than what we have done over the years. The focus has been on minimum wage jobs and the industries that we are trying to bring. And I think with some of the changes that are happening globally, I do think we have an opportunity to kind of think a little bit different and bring high-paid employment to Salem. So as far as this motion is concerned, I really appreciate Member Dixon that bringing this forward, because that is one of the areas that I I would like to focus on too, because there is a value in bringing that entire Salem in a different direction through different job opportunities. But so I would like to know what SEDCOR has as far as the information that is being asked through this motion, because we are paying SEDCOR to do the work. And so I would like to see, hey, what kind of data and report can they give us, and then identify those gaps and go through the actual process that we go through for council discussion, community input, and engaging with our partners. And I think I would like to go through that cycle. That's kind of much more cleaner, in my opinion, to be to get different perspectives there. So I don't think this motion, to answer your question, I don't know if this motion hinders or accelerates anything, because we already have a path forward with some of the stuff that we are doing.
Member Dixon, I would say on this, again, I think the idea is in the right category. Like, we should be understanding whether our economic development activities are creating better wages in the city. I think one opportunity that is before us at a council is a strategic plan for our urban renewal areas. I feel like that's just one of those things that's always a few months ahead of us. And also the potential, as we discussed earlier this evening, because some of our urban renewal areas are closing, we have the opportunity in both acreage and other ways that we're constrained in urban renewal areas to create more, including north of downtown. And I feel like these questions that you're asking here, are they actually or would these urban renewal areas translate to actual improvements in jobs, is something that we should also think about while we're doing that planning. And so I don't know that I'm ready to support this motion as written, because it's not quite tied to the other things that are currently underway. And I'm also not sure if the questions can be answered. The improvements of wages across the entire city feels very strangely disconnected to me from the things that the city itself does. We don't have a Prosper Portland. We don't have a giant economic development wing of our city. We have our urban renewal areas, the money that we spend to SEDCOR, that kind of thing. So again, I appreciate it, but I probably won't be supporting it. Member Cohen, then I'll return this way.
Thank you, Chair. I find this a very interesting motion. I like to study economics in my policy classes that I've taken. And what's interesting about Salem is that it's very unique. If you look at recession history of the state, Salem actually bodes really well in recessions because we are the center of government. We have state government, we have federal government, we have county government, we have city government. And so largely those don't lay off as many as you see job shedding in the private sector. On the other side of that, because of that reason, our large base government jobs, unless you're the chief investment officer for the Oregon Treasury or I don't know, the nurses at the state hospital, are between like 50,000 and 150,000, which still is good, don't get me wrong, but it's not, you know, Beaverton money, Hillsborough money. And so because we're in that unique area, I would gladly see any kind of investment that brings in additional just employment here, because I feel like we are overburdened by government. We're over-reliant on government as our source of income and source of people, myself included. And we're also paradoxically at a point in time where we are a post-industrial service sector, high technology economy, yet what we're seeing, and I don't know if anyone's watched Southern Oregon's troubles, They are gutting their liberal arts, and the recommendation was for them to start pushing post-secondary non-degree programs. And so we're in this kind of situation where the outside forces of AI's taken over a lot of the high-tech jobs that were going to be here. People aren't going to college. How do we bring in blue-collar jobs? There's a lot of unique choices right now for cities to do. So I would be interested for the city manager to partner with SEDCOR to, yes, bring in high-tech jobs, but also to bring in some more blue-collar jobs, because that is where the trajectory of students are going today. And I think that that would make it healthy. I don't know if that helps this motion at all. I find that, you know, any more information we can do would be beneficial to the city as a form of growth. So I think I'll probably support it because I want to see that we're getting a good bang for our buck. And I'll leave it to the city manager to lead the way on that.
Other thoughts on this? I think I had Member Nordick, and then Member Manville, and then Member Allen.
Sure. I think it is time that we do a careful review of what urban renewal should mean in this city. When we decide to gift tens of millions of dollars to businesses in our area in exchange for them making investments, we have always had strings attached, and with good reason. And it is important that we look at what those requirements are. We recently made some pretty significant changes to the West Salem urban renewal area, and this council lauded that as creating the flexibility to respond to the business needs of today, to increase the maximum reimbursement to spur more investment, to cover relocation expenses, to help businesses move into West Salem, not just create new construction. So clearly this council, the council members of this committee have already demonstrated an appetite for updating our URAs to reflect the needs of this economy. Because as Member Cohen has added, the economy today is very different than when these URAs were first rolling out in the 1970s, right? The massive malls that helped, you know, the URAs brought the mall to downtown Salem and was extremely successful for the time it was here, but people don't do malls the way they used to. And that's why Macy's closed hundreds of stores, JCPenney's closed hundreds of stores, so I think we need to look at what our URAs are doing and what kind of jobs are they creating. And I heard someone use the term better wages. I like to use the term livable wages, right? I think that's really important. So I like the idea of us studying it. I like the idea that City Manager Nembury is already looking into this, because I don't know the answers to these questions, but that's why working with SEDCOR, understanding the connectivity between our URAs and our enterprise zones would be helpful. I do know that there is a URA in Wilsonville that does connect some URA funding to having wages that are 125% of the area county income. Does that make sense for Salem? I have no idea yet. But I like the fact that we are having these conversations, that they're already underway. And to me, it may not be necessary to recommend the study. If the staff are already committing their time, you may not need to rearrange some numbers in the budget. It sounds like staff are already using their budgeted time to look into this, so it may not be necessary to direct them to do that. So that would be my only hesitation. I don't think we need to pull funding from the general fund to do this for this specific study. It sounds like they're already working on it.
Thank you, Member Nordick. Oops, excuse me. Other discussion on the motion. Member Manville and then Member Allen.
Yeah, thank you. I think Member Nordick explained a lot of things, and that echoed mine, Member Cohen as well. And I really appreciate Member Dixon's ongoing dedication to think about URAs. It is a complicated issue, and I appreciate your doggedness in raising the questions. I think as we're trying to create that long-term financial stability, being really careful about how we're spending money on these programs and making sure we're getting the effects we want is critical. And it sounds like it's a no expense motion as I'm reading it, and aligns with what the city's doing, but kind of might nudge them and focus them a little bit more to be clear that we're supportive of the work of the city manager and stuff. Lastly, I would note what CFO Eggleston noted about, hey, this was an amazing year, in part because we closed some URAs for our budget. That really helped our budget. And so there is real money there that we need to be thinking about carefully. So as I read it right now, I will be supporting the motion unless people clarify that it's different than how I'm reading it.
Thank you, Member Manville. Member Allen.
Thank you. I support the concepts. I don't support the motion as it's written. It says to recommend a study, and then it says the study should encompass. We're talking about a singular activity, one that would cost money that may or may not be working in harmony with what the city's already doing. I certainly recommend that the city study or consider how economic development programs affect the wages of local workers. And I think that's already being done, or at least is moving in that direction. So I support the concept. I don't support the motion.
Member Matthews and then Member Nishioka.
I did just want to clarify, is this a no expense motion, or because it's more targeted? I mean, does it line well enough with your strategy already that it is a no expense motion?
Yeah, just to clarify, what it is doing is recommending the city focus funds on this area as a consideration. As written, it doesn't appropriate additional dollars or anything like that. As suggested, the city budget's $350,000 for organizational improvement consulting. I will say it's oversubscribed. There's lots of considerations for those dollars, but this would be another consideration. As currently written, I think we would work through it, and then we would add it to the Finance Committee's consideration as they're looking at performance audits for economic development.
Yes, follow up.
So if this was approved tonight, it would go to Finance Committee, or it would go to the full council for consideration, or would you just be adding this in to the Finance Committees of either way, whether it passes or not? You kind of add this overall concept.
Yeah, it's a little strange. So Budget Committee is advisory to City Council. The Finance Committee is advisory to City Council. The City Council's tasked the Finance Committee with this work. So we would likely do a side step to the Finance Committee for this work.
Got it.
Member Nishioka.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if we might either amend this motion or make a substitute motion to basically ask the staff to continue their work on evaluating economic opportunities and where we might find ways to increase economic development for the city, or something to that nature. If you're thinking that that would be of any help, maybe we could take a brief break and either amend or create a substitute motion.
What I heard from CFO Eggleston is that if this motion is passed as it's written, it'll move over to the Finance Committee to consider as part of their work. So it's not a cost beyond what has already been decided by this budget and the City Council's tasking of the Finance Committee.
So we can leave it as it's written. We don't need to make any changes. Then Finance Committee would take it on. And
that is what we've been told is the interpretation from the city. Member Dixon, would you like to respond? And then I see Member Varney had a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My sole focus here is to ensure that the city puts workers front and center as it's evaluating its economic development programs and building on them for the future. If it's already being done, I'm great with that. I do want it on the record, however, that this committee recommends that workers be right there in the conversation about economic development. So whatever it takes, I'll be happy with.
Thank you, Member Dixon, and I assume that if the motion passes, its text will be provided to the Finance Committee in their considerations. Member Varney?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I really appreciate this motion. It's really crucial that we do that. I support City Manager Namburi's idea. I mean, the notes that I wrote down before she even spoke were what if any metrics associated with economic development are being tracked? Because we don't know, and that's the first question that we need to ask. And if they're not tracking the metrics that we need to address the concerns, then we need to do something about it. Because I really feel, I agree with you, tracking those wages is crucially important. You know, are our investments making a difference to our workforce in our community? And that's a really important question to answer. So I'm supportive of the motion in the sense of the idea. I'm not sure it gets us exactly to where we want to go, but I'm glad we're going where we're going, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Varney. Member Blachix.
Thank you, Chair. And if I may speak to Member Dixon, I really like what you said in your last comments in terms of bringing workers to the table is a motion for a recommendation that I could support. This motion is very too specific about something I think that's not so easy to measure, as in this would be paying for a consultant to come up with a number for a number that's really impossible to figure out in my mind, given the fact there's no counterfactual, there's no scientific way to measure this sort of thing of the proposal. So I do like what you said the purpose of it was: bring workers to the table, have them be part of the conversation, have labor be part of the conversation when the city considers economic development. So I can't support this motion, but I support the idea that I think you're getting at.
City Manager Namburi, and then I'll give Member Dixon the last word.
Yeah, I would like for Director Rutherford to come and give a little bit of information about some of the work that has been done to add jobs. And Kristen, I apologize, and I used the wrong term. I meant to say high-tech jobs, and I didn't mean to say that all jobs that we are trying to bring are the minimum wage. But
Kristen Rutherford, Director of Community Planning and Development. I can give a little bit of context that might also help with the motion and what you're considering. So I'm going to start first with just urban renewal. And under statute, the purpose of urban renewal is not economic development. The purpose of urban renewal is to address blight. Okay? So the vast majority of urban renewal funds go to infrastructure and addressing blight through providing infrastructure where it's absent, and then in infrastructure in real estate. Right? So we do provide grants for businesses, for property owners, to help them secure leases that then does translate to retaining businesses or helping businesses grow or expand. And those are more or less the Main Street kinds of businesses downtown. But then we also, through the provision of infrastructure, like at the Mill Creek Corporate Center, basically set the stage for what we call the economic development activities. And those our own efforts and SEDCOR efforts are focused on traded sector business recruitment, retention, and expansion. And a lot of those jobs, a few thousand jobs, have landed in the Mill Creek Corporate Center that are traded sector jobs, which are higher than your minimum wage jobs, over the last decade. And that area is almost completely built out now. So, you know, one of the challenges moving forward is where does that new growth occur? So that's kind of where we are right now on that side of things. But I just wanted to clarify that all of our economic development activities are focused on traded sector job creation, with the exception of our grants for doing like a tenant improvement on a building downtown or in West Salem, which might help a restaurant establish or a cupcake shop or something like that, which would be more minimum wage jobs. But the focus there is more on job creation. And I also wanted to share with folks, I don't know how many of you were at the SEDCOR event last week or have seen the newspaper. I think it was in today's article, maybe yesterday's. Salem is the only city out of our peer cities, including Portland, including Eugene, Medford, Bend, that has had job growth. We had 1.7% job growth. That was about 5,600 jobs. 200 of those were in manufacturing, where all of those other cities were either at 0 or lost up to 1.7% of their jobs in their communities. So, as we're, where we are in the economy right now, in terms of job growth and job retention, Salem has been holding well. So as we are looking at how urban renewal directly impacts what a salary level is, that can become a very complex analysis because we don't have a business license. The program that you mentioned in Wilsonville, that was my program many years ago, and that program was created, and the wage rates were established because Wilsonville doesn't qualify for an enterprise zone. So that program was created to replicate the enterprise zone program that we do have here in Salem. And so to get the 5-year benefit of an enterprise zone, there is a wage rate component to that. So that does exist here. We don't have the business license, though. Wilsonville, we had a license and a payroll tax, and that allowed you to very closely peg how many jobs were being created or how many were being lost. It gets a lot trickier to track what the actual wages are. That's hard information to get from the Department of Revenue, especially tied geographically to an urban renewal area. And a lot of businesses don't really like to share that information. So I just wanted to offer that as some additional framework as you're kind of trying to define what this motion is and what we would try to accomplish with it.
Thank you, Director Rutherford. Appreciate that. I'll leave the last word to the maker of the motion, Member Dixon, and then we'll call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that urban renewal programs are part of the overall economic development work of the city. And more broadly, I think the city should, I think that information is doable. How wages are responding to the economic development work that's occurring in their area. And I support the motion because I made it, and I would like to see it go forward. And again, my main focus is on putting workers front and center in our economic development work, including urban renewal areas, including enterprise zones, including the work that SEDCOR does. I think this motion advances it. If there is alternative wording that would help it advance it better, I'm open to that.
Thank you, as always, Member Dixon. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Member Nishioka?
Aye.
Member Manville?
Aye.
Member Allen?
No.
Member Gwen?
Nay.
Member Fuller is gone. Member Nordyke? Member Dixon?
Aye.
Member Geyer?
Aye.
Member Belicheks?
Nay.
Member Brown?
Aye.
Member Cohen?
Aye.
Member Matthews?
Aye.
Member Julie Hoy?
Aye.
Member Vang?
Aye.
Member Varney?
Aye.
Member Murray?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vera Brandel?
Aye.
Chair Tigan?
Nay. The ayes pulled ahead, and the motion passes. Okay, let's move on to closing out this result area. Let me go back to my notes. Thank you. I'm going to ask the floor for a motion to approve the recommended City of Salem fiscal year 2027 strong and diverse economy result area budget.
So moved.
Thank you, Member Guyer. A motion from Member Guyer.
Second.
A second from Member Nordike. Any further discussion on the safe, nope, strong and diverse economy result area? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no. All right, that motion passes unanimously. We're going to move on to our 7th and final area is welcoming and livable community. Mr. Eggleston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Local and livable community, the total for the results area is just over 62 million with 207.15 full-time equivalent positions. It includes planning functions, development review, permitting and inspection, neighborhood enhancement, the Salem Public Library, homeless and sheltering coordination, social services and affordable housing, parks, recreation, Center 50+, the CDBG and home grant programs, public art and transient occupancy tax grants, as well as trust funds. And staff are available for questions.
Any questions for the staff on welcome and livable community? Yeah. Member Nordic, do you have a question?
Yes, briefly. I just wanted to reiterate that this is, in my opinion, one of the most important sections of our budget book, because when you talk about creating an environment where everyone feels safe, where everyone has a safe, healthy, clean Salem, affordable housing, and our social services budget have everything to do with those things. This is the section of the budget that prevents the crime that the other parts of our budget respond to. So I just want to reiterate how incredibly important this section of our budget is, and this needs to continue to be a priority. I've been voting on these projects. This council and this committee has been voting on social services and housing projects for a long time, and I'm pleased to see that it is an important part of our budget. So just wanted to underscore that. Thank you.
Questions for the staff? Member Nishioka?
Thank you. Thank you for those comments, Member Nordike, and I agree with you. This is a very important part to be for our livable community. I do have a question for our CFO. We have the public arts in this, and I know that we had testimony earlier with the Earth Globe, and I know that we still are uncertain about that. Could you just help us understand if there's a small amount of funds that is for that, I believe, in here, but it's not enough at this point?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So there's a small amount in the public art fund that's in this area. There is a project for the Echo Earth Globe that you voted on earlier in the capital improvement section. It's not near enough to complete the project, but it is in both of those areas.
Thank you for that reminder.
If there are no additional questions for the staff, I'll ask for a motion for the recommended City of Salem fiscal year 2027 welcome and livable community result area budget.
So moved.
Motion by Member Hoy.
I'll second it.
And a second by Member Nishioka. Are there any other discussion or comments about the welcome and livable community result area? Member Manville.
Yeah, this is just so woefully insufficient that I'm going to vote no on it. I think that's super well documented. What Member Nordyke mentioned, this is an investment in the future. This is exactly the proactive sort of long-term cost reduction program that, and I'm talking about the library part of it specifically, that we need to invest more in. And we are such an outlier, such an outlier, as Mr. Shepke has documented to no end. And our preschoolers are paying the cost for it. Our schools are paying the cost for it. Our families are paying the cost for it. Our community is paying the cost for it. We're going to end up with more crime and more problems and less community, and it's heartbreaking because of what we're doing, even though the voters stood up and plugged what they could with the levy. Thank goodness. It needs to be so much larger than it is, and I can't in good faith support such a low number.
Thank you, Member Manville. Others? Okay, seeing no other comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying no.
No.
Okay, that motion passes. We have done our duty so far. We do have one more section for public testimony. I don't have anyone signed up for public testimony for future budget issues. Not seeing anyone approaching the podium. I would like to, before we adjourn, acknowledge the great work of the city's staff in the budget and finance department. All of the city staff, the executive team, city manager, your team, for putting together this year's budget. We know that we were in a better place than we were last year. We know that there's more work to come, and just really appreciate the candor and the great conversation that we're able to have as a committee on behalf of our whole community. And thank you to the Budget Committee members for your dedication. And I said we'd be done by midnight, so if there's any other comments, we'll call the Budget Committee adjourned. Thank you, everyone.